One of the reasons of the series of revolutions in Russia was World War I. It caused starvation and death of millions of Russian soldiers. The war also caused a major trade route to be shut down in Turkey when the Turkish government joined the Central Powers. They lost many royalties and had to ration food. The lack of food caused wariness and hate towards the government. In 1916, revolution propaganda started because of German money, aided by German money. The losses in the war gave reason that the Tsar was an unfit ruler. The Tsar left most of the government's day-to-day jobs to the Empress, and in turn was greatly influenced by a monk named Rasputin. He had almost all the power in the country. However, on January 1917, a group of nobles assassinated Rasputin. The uncle of the present Tsar was asked indirectly to take control of the country. That was another cause of instability. Another reason of the revolution was the oppression of the middle class by the higher class Tsar and his relatives and nobles. Industrialization in Russia caused a huge growth in population in cities, which caused overcrowded living conditions and dangerous workspaces. This caused aggression of the general population and caused unrest. The unsafe workspaces caused worker riots all across the country. When the riots began in February 1917, the soldiers that were not injured were ordered by the Tsar to stop the riots by force, and in turn they began to mutiny. Many of the soldiers did not join the riot, but hid because they were being shot by the revolutionaries. The Tsar ran and gave up his throne and his son's throne. He offered it to his brother, who in turn declined because he would have little support himself. The Tsar was caught and, no longer being ruler, was placed under house arrest. Proto-Grand Soviet began to grow in power and put many of its competition in jail. The only other competition of their government was the provisional government, and the Soviets would not break their ideas of all workers being even and everybody having no social class. The provisional government tried to show its dominance by killing protesters, but it caused more despise by the citizens. In October of 1917, a revolution was led by Vladimir Lenin. It was much more planned out than the previous revolutions and began to spread communism. He led the revolution against the provisional government that was an ineffective government. This revolution ended the series of revolutions in the country. The Russian Civil War started in 1918 and caused suffering and millions of deaths. There were two sides: the red side, supported by the rising population, and the white side, supported by the monarchists. The white side was backed up by England, USA, and many other countries, but the population of the country backed up the Red Army. Many civilians revolted against the White Army, and it grew weak and eventually lost to the Red Army. In July 16th of 1918, the family of the past Tsar was killed and their limp bodies were hung in the streets. This revolution lasted for 6 years and cost millions of lives. The government in power at the end of all the chaos was the Soviets and Lenin.